What is up, everybody? Welcome to another edition of Drive for Show, DFS for Dough here on Rotogrinders. Justin Van Zuiden, aka STL Cardinals 84, here with you as usual to host the show. We've got a busy week for you. The Open Championship, fourth major of the year, should be a whole lot of fun. Breaking it down here for you as we get to an exciting event after a couple of weaker field events. We'll briefly recap the John Deere from last week, but before we do that, I will introduce my two co-hosts, as usual, Mr. Notorious, Derek Farnsworth on one side. Noto, how you doing?
Yeah, doing good. Last major of the year, kind of a bittersweet moment, but yeah, these are going to be fun. I can't wait for the show tonight, and I'm sure a lot of you have seen Tambo's tweet. Unfortunately, not going to be with Rotogrinders anymore. So I just want to say awesome working with you, Tambo, and we're going to miss you. But yeah, we got TJ on board this week, so I'm excited for that too.
Yeah, for sure. Again, shout out to Tambo. Thanks for working with us there for a year. It was a lot of fun doing the shows with you, and appreciate everything you did along the way. So we wish Tambo the best. But we've got Mr. TJ Laessig here. He's been working with us for quite a while, so not new to the DFS golf streets by any means. You might know him as, if you've checked out Rotogrinders Premium, the guy tagging Cameron Tringali quite often in our lineup HQ value selections that he does every week. But TJ, welcome to the show, and nice to have you with us.
Yeah, how's it going, guys? Good to be on the show. Shout out to Tambo. Was doing the Monday review shows with him for the past almost year at this point. So best of luck to him and whatever's next. And yeah, I'm like the rookie that gets the call up the day before the big last major of the season here. So just going to come in, play a solid role here, and I'll let you guys carry me home.
At least we don't have to talk about some of the names that we've had to talk about the last couple of weeks. A little bit easier to talk about a major when you've got a guy who was 9,900 last week, and Kevin Streelman's in the 6Ks on DraftKings this week. Makes it a little easier to build lineups. But we'll take a quick look back at the John Deere. Of course, it was a horrible week for weather. I always go, and I had lined up to go on the weekend, and it basically rained all weekend throughout the Saturday and Sunday rounds there, the John Deere, and didn't really feel like sloshing it around with an umbrella to watch Cam Champ and Lucas Glover and those guys. I didn't really have a sweat. So if I'd had a big sweat for something, I might have, gone and braved the rain, but no sweat and no good weather. It was like 68 degrees. It was gross for this time of year. Meant no trip to the John Deere for me. But Lucas Glover takes it down. I believe his first win in 9 years, if I read that correctly, but made enough putts and stayed hot there on Sunday in some more challenging conditions and was able to get the win. So it was an okay DFS week for me, but wasn't really in the hunt for anything major there going into Sunday. So just one of those weeks, and hopefully saving up the good karma for this week. TJ, I'll throw it back to you. Any big takeaways or thoughts or big wins for you last week?
Yeah, kind of an average week for me last week. I think feeling the same way of you guys. Excited to get past these weaker fields. Going to be feeling a lot more comfortable about our lineups, at least the players in the lineups, given the major. But no big takeaways. Good to see Glover get into the winner's circle. Someone that I've been on a bit over the course of the past year. Fortunately, not a ton last week. But yeah, excited to move on to much more exciting things with the Open Championship after a year off.
For sure. Always great to see this tournament back. And after a year of not being contested due to the pandemic and, travel restrictions and all that, nice to have it back here this year. Noto, thoughts last week? I would imagine with Brian Harmon's performance, it probably wasn't the turnaround that you were hoping for with your John Deere luck.
Yeah, the one golfer that never lets me down, misses the cut. I think he was like 4 under on Thursday, and then didn't ever even sniff the cut after that. But yeah, that was disappointing. Hopefully Lucas Glover's win will buy him some good home time for the next little bit. I know he's had some issues there. So yeah, it was good to see him getting the win. Again, Kevin Na with another high finish. He's one of those guys that you just play on these shorter tracks. He's going to pop every so often. And I was glad I tried to talk Tambo off of Ryan Moore on the Lineup HQ show. So yeah, overall, just not a good week for me. But like TJ said, I'm excited for this week to build some lineups where I actually feel pretty good about the guys we're clicking.
Yeah, it's should be a lot more fun this week than it has been the last few as far as the lineup building process goes. And, you're not trying to figure out which, plug your nose golfer you can leave in your player pool. Not going to have that problem this week. So yeah, it was good to see Lucas Glover. And I think for a while there, for a while on Saturday, our guess the golfer guy last week. Now, remember, it took like 50 guesses for the YouTube chat to guess our punt golfer of the week. And I had never been rooting harder for Scott Brown in my life when he had the solo lead on Saturday for a while. And I think he was only like a shot or two back heading into Sunday and ended up with a top 5 finish. So if you played Scott Brown at 6,800 or whatever he was last week, that was gold for you. So hopefully at least a few of you got onto Scott Brown from our Guess the Golfer segment last week. And we'll do that again here when we get to the value section for the Open Championship. Towards the end of the show, we'll have our Guess the Golfer for our favorite value of the week for a free week of Rotogrinders Premium. Those of you that are interested in signing up, this is a great time to do it. Obviously, with the major this week, and get all our golf content. Our premium subscriptions now, you get the option to pick your sports, or you can do the combo package, which includes basically everything except NASCAR. And Devin, our producer, will drop a link in the description. If you sign up through that, we'll get you $10 off your first month purchase of Rotogrinders Premium. So check that out if you're interested. And we'll do our giveaway promo at the end of the show. So stay tuned for that. All right, let's go ahead and dig into this week. Obviously, lots to get to with the Open Championship, loaded field, major tournament being contested. They do a course rotation for this. So Royal St. George's is the host course this year, which I believe was last year used in 2011 for the Open, and then also in 2003. So not a ton of data, at least recently, on the course, but it's going to play as your traditional link style layout for the Open Championship. And early forecasts look to be a bit breezy. And there is only one tree on this entire course. So I did manage to watch the hole by hole video walkthrough yesterday. One lone tree on the course. So if it's windy, this is going to present a challenge. So Noto, we usually send it to you for the course breakdown. Obviously, this is a new test for most of us, but what do we know about the course this week?
Yeah, so Royal St. George's Golf Club in Sandwich, United Kingdom. I have 2 different weather forecasts posted in my article and in the first look if you want to check those out, because this week more than any other, wind is going to play a factor. Right now, it kind of looks like this is going to be pretty windy Thursday and Friday throughout both days, but we know weather can change on a dime over there. So definitely be ready to stack some tee times. Even if it doesn't look like there's an edge, I think there is some merit to stacking tee times both ways this week. But as far as the course, 7,200 yards, par 70. We think of the Open Championship Rota, and this one just doesn't come to mind. It kind of feels like a new course. It was 10 years ago that we last saw it. Darren Clark ended up winning. He was one of the biggest long shots that we've ever seen win the Open Championship. So that kind of brings a bunch of stuff into play for me. As far as the course, the thing that comes to mind for me is undulations. The fairways extremely hilly. You're not going to have any even lies on this course. The greens, a lot of bumps in them. So even if you had a lot of good shots, you're going to get a lot of bad bounces, and that's just kind of links golf in a nutshell. So I'm excited for it. I think you're going to have a lot of patience in order to contend this week. And yeah, you want to avoid these bunkers. Deep pot bunkers, probably going to be, at least half stroke penalty if you hit into them. And the winning score, it's just going to depend on the weather. But like I mentioned, it does sound like it's going to get pretty gusty. So for me, I'm just looking at all around golfers, guys with good short games, guys that are creative, and guys that have links and Open Championship experience.
The good news is that since this tournament starts at such a weird time in the States, if you're a night owl, it'll be great for your sleeping pattern. But since it starts like at 1 a.m. or so, Thursday morning in the States. If you got a guy that's, +8 through 10 holes and your lineup's dead by 5 a.m., you can still enter contests for the Barbasol that starts at, 8 o'clock, and you can try to make some money there. I thought of that because somebody mentioned that they were rolling Scott Brown again in their Barbasol lineup, where just for the sake of clarity, Russell Knox is the 6th most expensive golfer, and Adam Schenk is the 8th most expensive golfer, and Scott Brown is 8,000. So if you're interested in putting together similar lineups to what you have the last few weeks, you can play some Barbasol championship contests. But I'll probably end up throwing a lineup in there now when I'm up early watching the Open. I'll throw a Barbasol lineup in there, but probably won't have time to talk about that here on the show. But good luck if you do happen to play some Barbasol lineups. So, TJ, what are you thinking about the course this week, and how much stock are you putting into guys? With a question a lot of people might ask is guys with more Open Championship experience versus guys that might be playing well in the States that don't have as much Open Championship experience. You think of guys that people are going to perceive as being really cheap, like maybe a Jason Kokrak or a Sam Burns or something like that. How are you balancing that, weighting those factors this week?
Yeah, definitely always an interesting thing to consider when it comes to the Open Championship in particular. I'm definitely weighing the experience. I think it certainly matters. However, some of the guys you just mentioned, a couple of them were in my value plays article because you're just getting such a discount on them relative to the abilities that they have as a golfer. And so I'm willing to take some chances on some of those guys that maybe don't have the Open Championship or Links experience from the past, but we've seen them perform at all different kinds of courses and different field sizes, field strengths in the past. I also think, in general, I tend to look heavily towards ball strikers, but leaning more towards the all-around game and looking more at scrambling and around the green play than I typically do, just because especially if the wind gets crazy like we are expecting it to at different points, you're going to need to scramble at certain times. You're going to need to be able to get those up and downs and saves par. So factoring that in a bit more than I do, but when push comes to shove, I do tend to lean towards those ball strikers when I can.
Yeah, a lot of runoff areas around the greens here, and certainly if it's windy, you're going to want guys that can scramble and save par, when they have to. So should be a lot of fun. Let's go ahead and start breaking it down. Noto, anything else you want to highlight from a high level before we get rolling?
No, let's get into it.
All right, I will let TJ. I still have the Barbasol up here. We got to get off of that. I was getting ready to go through the top options, and I see Seamus Power and Schwartzel. And
oof, thank God you don't have to. Yeah, you kick it to me and ask me my thoughts on Shane Powers for this week. I'm like,
all right, that looks a little bit better. So we've got the pricing is always a little bit softer in majors, partly because the field is so deep and partly because the sites generally set it up that way intentionally, just to try to make it easier. You got a lot of casual DFS players playing this week. There's nothing really else on the DFS calendar right now. I mean, baseball doesn't really start up again until Friday. NBA, you got the showdown games for the finals. But those are, once every 2 or 3 days. NHL's done. So not a whole lot of sports going on, getting the attention. It's basically just golf this week. And so you will see more casual players putting in some lineups. And they like to make the pricing a little bit softer for the majors just generally as well. So we got Jon Rahm, clearly the most informed golfer on the planet right now. I mean, he won the U.S. Open, 8th at the PGA, 5th at the Masters, top 8 finishes in all 3 majors this year. Pretty hard to argue against him as the top, and the favorite at this point. But it is kind of shocking to see him at like 7 or 8 to 1 to win, where then you get everybody else at like the, 16, 18, 20 to 1 range. That's putting a lot of stock in Rahm's play. And you still got, Rory McIlroy, Brooks Koepka, Major Brooks, Dustin Johnson, and Xander Schauffele there at the 5-figure price tags on DK. So, TJ, you got to make Rahm a priority, or where are you looking in the 5 figures?
Yeah, it's always tough in the majors, right? Obviously, all the elite golfers in the world are here, but to me, Rahm does stand head and shoulders above. I think it makes sense what you said about the betting markets. It's tough to bet him outright at that number relative to the other guys. But when it comes to DFS, I mean, the guy has more top 10s than anything else over the last 6 to 12 months. And just continues to perform at a high level, not even factoring in the would have been second win that he would have had if it weren't for the unfortunate COVID case. So definitely prioritizing Rahm here. I'm not looking to get crazy overweight. I mean, he's certainly going to come in high owned, but looking to get slightly above the field on Rahm and then sprinkle in some of the other guys from there. Major Brooks is also something else that I feel like is just a thing. It's very narrative based, and for the most part, I try to stay away from narratives, but I do think that there is something to Brooks just rising to the occasion when it comes to the majors. Xander, I think, is just a super solid play, sitting at 10K, always does well in the higher end fields. And then, I want to play one of Rory or DJ, and it's crazy to think that we can get them under 10% ownership here. I'm kind of leaning Rory at this point, but curious your guys' thoughts between those two as really the only spots that you can get significant leverage at the top.
Yeah, it's kind of surprising to see Rory and DJ at such low projected ownership. And I get, obviously you got form questions with them compared to the others, but boy, always looks a little tempting when you can get Rory and DJ at, 7 or 8% ownership. So Noto, what say you on these top guys? And you got any thoughts on Rory and DJ?
Yeah, I was going to say the first thing that stands out to me is the ownership of those two. Usually above 10K, we see everybody in the teens at least. So if that sticks, I'll definitely try to get at least some of them. If you do have, more than the field on DJ and Rory, then you're probably not going to be able to get 25% of Rahm and Koepka. But I think it makes sense to get a little bit of all of these guys for all the reasons you guys mentioned. Rahm makes a lot of sense. Only 6 players have beat him over the last 3 tournaments combined, which is pretty crazy. Rory just doesn't seem like he's in the best of form, but the open track record certainly there. Remember the last time out, it was at in Ireland, and he shot like a 79 on the first day and nearly came back and made the cut on the number. Prior to that, he had 3 straight top 5s. Brooks, like you guys mentioned, just a major beast. And, he came out today and said he doesn't like the course. And I swear he does something every week of a major just to make himself an underdog, or, he's limping up the stairs, or he can't walk, or he can't read putts. And now he doesn't like the course because, he can't see the fairway on a couple.
I fully expect him at like next year's Masters or something. He's going to roll up to the tournament in a wheelchair or something.
I think he just likes to be the underdog and likes to have people not picking him to win. But I'll obviously play him. 19 major starts in the last 5 years, 4 wins, 11 top 5. So just unreal. And then DJ, there's a reason why he's low owned, but wouldn't surprise anyone if he won. Point per dollar basis, Xander is going to be my favorite. He's elite all around. He's got 8 top 5 finishes in his last 17 majors. So second only to Brooks Koepka over that span. Never missed a cut at the Open. Nearly won here in 2018 when, Tiger and Molinari were battling it out. So I think it's a really strong range. I'm going to plan to get a little bit of exposure to all of them, but I think Xander is going to be my favorite.
You are making one lineup with the only stipulation being that you have to use either DJ or Rory, and it's a single entry lineup. Which one are you taking?
That is a great question. And I'll take Rory.
All right, TJ, I'll throw you the same question.
I was going to say the same thing. I'll take Rory just because of the history at the Open, and always has that upside. But man, it's tough. Either of those guys on any given day are just you see them at the A+ game, you're like, oh, that's the best golfer in the world right there. Yeah, but I'm going to go Rory.
Rory did come 7th at the US Open, so I will make that a 3-for-3 sweep on that question.
If Rory shoots like even par on Thursday, just bet him to win right there and then, because he's like 100 over par his first rounds of majors in the last 10 years. It's crazy.
Yeah, the second and third rounds, he tends to be okay. That first round and sometimes that final round have been snake bites for him. So, yeah, obviously hard to dislike any of the guys in this range, but figured that was an interesting question with how low owned they're going to be. And, you're probably not going to put both of them in the same lineup, but certainly don't mind choosing one, particularly in GPPs. All right, let's go ahead and move down into the 9Ks. I'll give Noto the first crack at this range. We've got Bryson. Probably the least talked about. He's been at a major event in quite some time. In terms of DFS interest, you've got the caddy split. You've got poor performances at courses that should have absolutely suited his ability to bomb the ball. Missed the cut at the Rocket Mortgage. and doesn't have a top 10 since the Wells Fargo back in May. So nobody's talking about Bryson this week. You got him at low ownership, and part of that's going to be because lots of people like Spieth. Justin Thomas had a bit of a discount. Oosthuizen showing up, getting his rubber stamp second place finish in the majors. Morikawa, one of the best ball strikers, and you got Hoblin in here too. So Bryson appears to be the least owned out of these guys, and Spieth might be the highest owned golfer in the field. At least that's what we're showing right now by a fairly healthy margin. So Noto, chalky Spieth, what do you do with that?
Chalky Spieth, I think I have to be in. We know he leads, everyone in strokes gained, magic around the greens and on the greens. I mean, he's just a magician out there. He's gained off the tee and on approach in 8 straight events. He's had one of the best ball striking, performances during that stretch. So everything kind of lines up for him. We know he's won the Open before. I do like Spieth. I also like JT. He's a lead tee to green as well. Pretty good history on links. T8 last week at the Scottish. I kind of like the guys that played last week and in Scotland.
I think JT was first in off the tee last week as well.
So that's always nice. We know the irons are great. Around the green's great. If he putts well, I think he's kind of guaranteed to be there on Sunday. Obviously, we got to play Louis. Just a bridesmaid forever, but he has won an Open before, and he's just been playing so well. I got to play Louis. Typically, he's like 7,500 in these fields, and now he's 9,300. So I think we could get him at lower ownership than usual. If you like Bryson this week, my advice, just bet him outright, 35-1. I've seen him up to 40-1 in some sports books. That's just wild for Bryson at a major. I don't really like him for DFS. I think his miscut equity is pretty high. You mentioned all the reasons why, and I don't think the RNA gives out greens books. I wasn't able to verify that, but we know he relies on those heavily. That's why he struggles at the Masters, at least one of the reasons why he's mentioned. Morikawa, I don't really know what to do with him and Hovland. I feel a little bit better about Hovland just because he has a little bit more experience over in Europe. And Morikawa was T71 last week at the Scottish. Didn't feel great about that. And then Tyrrell Hatton, this is kind of the best major for him. He's just a true grinder. I think he makes a lot of sense, but he's going to be pretty popular as well.
All right. This is a really interesting range. And with my slight anti-Spieth bias that still exists, it is really, it's tempting me with him, possibly going to be the highest owned golfer to risk the fade. Though it's certainly not based on statistics at this point. It would just be based on potential leverage and hope that he doesn't bring the magic this week. But I haven't made a decision on that just yet. So TJ, what's your thought process here on this 9K range?
Been in the same boat with you on Spieth of just being, personally stubborn about, it's Jordan Spieth, it's short term. But at this point, he's proven it to me for long enough over the past, I feel like it's 5-6 months at this point. So definitely going to be looking his way, just someone that's got really the all around game clicking right now, top in the field in strokes gained total over the last 50 rounds. So definitely like getting at least even with the field on Spieth, not trying to go too crazy there. Justin Thomas, a little bit lower than you guys are on him, which scares me a bit. He's the person I wrote up in the expert survey this week that I'm afraid to be underweight on, but know that he's been rounding into form a little bit, but probably I'm not going to fully exclude him, but a little underweight on that front. I'm a big Victor Hovland guy. Know that it's his first time out at the Open Championship. There's some concerns. My biggest concern with him around the green and scrambling play, but just striking the ball so well and has been knocking out those top 10 finishes. So I like Hovland a little bit over Morikawa and Hatton. Hatton, someone like Noto said, want to mix him in, but feel like he's going to be coming in at a little higher owned and actually like the two guys below him a bit more. So looking to be a little underweight on Hovland, focusing on Hovland and Morikawa in that range. And then I agree on Louis. It's a bit of sticker shock on Louis for me. I would have thought that he would have come in like the high 8s, but he's still just been performing in every major, has that Open Championship record. So definitely going to be looking his way this week.
Yeah, and that price tag will probably keep him a little bit lower owned than it, otherwise. I think, was it the US Open that he was really cheap?
In every major.
Yeah. Usually he's like low 8K. So I was surprised but it's probably appropriate because he's, like you said, he's been coming in second on the reg.
Yeah, I've got no issue really with any of these guys. Obviously, you guys alluded to I'm pretty high on Thomas. I like Morikawa and Hovland as well. So I'll probably keep an eye on ownership here, but might end up at least being underweight on Spieth, just for leverage and hope he doesn't win. If he gets 12th or 15th, it probably doesn't knock you out of the running for anything. So and because I will be playing some of the other chalk, so it's like they're taunting me with Reed and Spieth as chalk this week. But I'm in on Reed. That means you should all run for the hills.
I was about to be on him, but now I'm debating.
I mean, if Spieth is number one for magic on and around the greens, man, I can't tell you how many times Patrick Reed has made a cut because he's chipped in from 40 feet in the rough off the green or something. It's just all the time. I mean, he'll go make a 12-foot putt. Whoever runs the anonymous Twitter account that most people seem to think is being run by his wife is tweeting out about his tee times. It's Benny on part 2. We've got Patrick Reed and Justine very upset about Patrick getting a late Thursday, early Friday tee time. That was coming out this morning. So they're fired up. I mean, he's ready to go. And, his game suits links golf well. And he's another one of those guys that just shows up at majors. So I'm in on Reed this week. I can't go back on that now just because of ownership. So therefore I'll probably be less on Spieth. So Reed is, obviously a guy that people are looking to in the 8K range. I know people have questions on Paul Casey. Is he fully healthy? I saw a couple people in the chat ask what to do with Webb Simpson, what to do with Tony Finau. Really interesting nuggets on both of those guys. Both Finau and Webb Simpson come in with back-to-back missed cuts, and that's going to keep less people on them this week. So I like those guys as potential bounce-back candidates. So interesting targets in this range. TJ, I'll throw this one to you first, since now you got to swerve off a Reed because I'm on him. Who you looking at in the 8Ks?
I was going to say both Patricks, but I can and certainly talk about the other Patrick in right at the top, Cantlay. Aside from the 4 tournaments where he just randomly forgot how to play golf, he's been pretty dialed in since late last year, coming off of a 13th, 15th at the Travelers and US Open. His win at the Memorial, obviously Rahm would have won that, but still nonetheless. And then 23rd at the PGA, just been playing that all-around game, gaining strokes tee to green, also been playing well on and around the green. So Cantlay is probably my top overall play on the board, just given the price and the equity that I feel he has. Definitely going to come with some ownership, but can fit a lot of different roster constructions as your second or third guy in. So like Cantlay at the top. I do like Patrick Reed, although, I think everyone's got to reconsider it whenever STL is in on Patrick Reed. We all know to run the other way.
I think he did well. He did well the last time I played him, so maybe we've broken the curse.
We've turned a new leaf here. I definitely like Tony Finau down at 8,400. Feels a little bit underpriced. The narrative around Finau is always that he can't win, but at 8,400, you don't need him to win. You just need him to churn out those top 10s as he's been able to do in majors in the past. So I'm on Finau. Also, I like Scotty Schaeffler. I pretty much like Scotty Schaeffler every major. I feel like he just always performs in the more difficult events, the tougher fields. Past couple majors poured out some top 20, top 10 finishes. So Scotty Schaeffler, I think decent leverage play towards the bottom there. So those are the guys that are sticking out to me in the AK range.
All right, Noto, what do you got?
Yeah, I like both Patricks up top, Cantlay and Reed. You guys kind of mentioned the reasons why we should like them this week. Cantlay just feels way too underpriced to me. You take out those 4 missed cuts, like TJ was mentioning. He's been one of the best golfers on tour this season. He's got 2 wins in his last 15 starts as well. So I like him. I like Finau to bounce back. Broke my heart at the US Open. Couldn't believe how bad he played there. But his top 10 rate in majors is pretty high, and he's been really good at the Open Championships, 4 straight top 30s. I do like Webb, sort of a leverage play in this range. You mentioned the back-to-back missed cuts, and he's only played 3 times in 3 months. He was dealing with that neck injury, but I just think he's a good fit for the course. The grinder types tend to play well at the Open Championship, so I do like him a lot as a leverage play there. And then I really like Tommy Fleetwood. My rule for him: play him in Europe and fade him in America. It's worked pretty good over the last couple of years. He's had progressively better finishes each of the last 4 opens, and he finished second in 2019. So he's only got one more spot to go up, and naturally that's going to happen. So I like those guys. And then, yeah, Paul Casey, I don't know what I'm doing with him yet. So what are you guys doing?
I mean, I'm worried about the health. That's really the only thing that would hold me back. You know, I can't remember if that was the U.S. Open or the Travelers, where he was.
I hit the lock button. It was bad.
And, you know, everyone thought he was going to withdraw, and we haven't seen him since in like 3 weeks. So I don't know. There's nothing to indicate that he's not healthy, but it's a concern. I mean, that's the last time we saw him. So because there's so many good golfers in this range, I think I'm out, but it's not because of his stats or his play. It's just, I'll take a risk-averse approach to him, I think. TJ, you got a thought on Casey?
Yeah, I think that's a valid point, just like you said, with so many good options around him, but the numbers definitely check out. I mean, he's been striking the ball great. Putter has been the same as always when it comes to Paul Casey, but still getting those finishes in. 7th at the US Open, 4th at the PGA, 26th at the Masters, 5th at the Players. So doing well in the high end majors / the 5th majors in the Players. So I'm going to have a little bit of Paul Casey, but not trying to get too crazy on him.
All right. Anything else? We've pretty much covered up to 8,000. So good options in this range. Lots of decent contrarian options. I see people are already starting to talk about the value plays. We'll get to those guys in just a bit. We can probably throw out, I guess, the golfer segment, though, just because I don't want to forget to do it. So this would be a golfer that is under 7,000 on DraftKings that we all kind of like as a value, not super chalky or anything like that, but reasonable value play this week. And, we don't have to get too crazy. It's not Scott Brown like crazy because we got, a good field here. But throw out your guesses in the YouTube chat if you're watching us live. First person to get it gets a free week of Rotogrinders premium access. We got quite a few people watching this week, so who knows? Maybe we can throw out 2 if 2 people happen to get it in a short period of time. So throw your guesses out there. If we get a winner, we will announce that shortly. So while people are throwing those guesses out there, let's go ahead and move into the 7K range. Noto, I'll stick with you on this range first. Because your boy Matt Fitzpatrick is there at 7,900. So are you on him this week?
Yeah, I certainly have a type. The guys that are short off the tee, not great with the irons, and elite short games. So Harmon and Fitzpatrick, got to be on those guys. But yeah, played great last week at the Scottish. Ended up losing in a playoff. His record at the Open hasn't been great, but he's a much better golfer now than he ever was the last 4 times he's played it. So I will be on Fitz. He's going to be pretty popular. I like going back to Cam Smith. I think if he was in a little better form, he would be a lot more popular and probably more expensive. Last time we saw him, the irons started to heat up. We know he's pretty good in the majors. I have a Jason Day problem, so I got to play him. Really good Open track record. The last time he played the Open, I don't know if you guys rostered him that week, but he had like 6 bogeys in a row on his back 9 on Friday, missed the cut by 1. It was just brutal. But anyway, back-to-back top 15s for him. So I like Jason Day. I'll have a little bit of Sergio, and then that's pretty much it for the 75 to 8K for me.
All right, TJ, who are you looking at in this range?
Yeah, they really start to tempt me in the 7K range because we got a bunch of the ball strikers that are struggling around the greens, and I really do think that's going to be important this week. So looking at a couple of those guys, that's definitely weighing on my mind. I like Fitzy for the same reasons that Noto said. Think that he just sets up well for this kind of tournament, that grinder type environment. Going to be on Lowry a bit, the defending champ from the Open 2 years ago, been in pretty good form as of late. Someone that I'm going to be mixing in for sure. Has just that steady all around game that I look for in these types of tournaments. Feel the same way about Jason Day, not looking to get crazy on him, but going to be mixing him in. And then Abraham Answer, I like him quite a bit. Have some concerns with his ability to scramble, but I love the upside just with the way that he's been striking the ball recently. 18th over the last 24 rounds, tee to green, 4th in strokes gain total, putting the ball well. So if he can avoid any disasters around the green, I like answer his chances here.
All right, Lucas Herbert was the golfer for the Guess the Golfer segment, and we'll see if Devin is feeling generous. So Garth was the first one to guess it, but we actually had somebody ask about Lucas Herbert before we even started playing the game, which is that's premonition right there, to ask about the Guess the Golfer guy before we even brought up the game. So shout out to also great username DFS Hack, asking about Lucas Herbert before. So we're in. I am definitely in on Lucas Herbert this week. So you can hit up Devin and get a free week of Rotogrinders Premium as well. Congrats. Thanks for playing, everybody. And yeah, very much appreciate it. And if you like the program, you're watching us live, checking us out on YouTube, be sure to hit that thumbs up button and subscribe to the RG channel if you haven't already. We appreciate that very much. Helps out with those YouTube algorithms and all those fun things. So, all right. I was a little distracted by the game there, so my apologies if I duplicate up on anything you guys said. But yeah, I mean, guys that have some history on links that, maybe feel a little bit overpriced compared to others, Lowry, Sergio, those are guys that I like this week. And then you can even start digging into some of those names of guys that play on the European tour a little bit more, that may not be the household names in the States. Robert McIntyre is a good example of that. Came sixth at the Open a couple years ago. Solid links player, in decent form right now too. So McIntyre at 7,300 is one of my favorite values of the week. Was kind of shocked to see we've got Harris English projecting to be really, really popular. Not sure if he'll end up, at 15+%. But I don't know. That seems a little high, especially with Ricky Fowler kind of, adding some steam there at 7,300. So that's kind of bleeding into the lower end of the 7Ks a little bit, with McIntyre being my favorite. And then, guys like Fowler and English getting some momentum. I think you guys covered the 7,500 to 8K range pretty well. So, TJ, I'll throw it back to you. What are you thinking in the lower end of the 7K range? I see you got a few guys tagged up here.
Yeah, tagged a couple here. Started with Daniel Berger. Just felt like he was pretty underpriced at the $7,400 price tag. And at least looking at ownership projections as of now, doesn't seem like he's going to come in too heavily. So that's definitely someone that I'm looking to get overweight on, someone that I would also consider for single entry, 3 max type tournaments, just solid all around game, coming in decent form, and just feel that the price tag is too good to pass up there. English, as you mentioned, I do really like him as a play. The form is great, coming in at, he's 6th in strokes gained total over the last 24 rounds. But if he's really going to be upwards of 20%, I think that's pretty tough to stomach in GPPs. I think that's one of the things with these majors is there's so many good options that I'm trying not to get too carried away on any of the lower priced chalkier guys. And then rounding things out at the bottom, I like Poulter, just again, grinder type that has obviously tons of major experience. Jason Kokrak, someone who striking the ball really well, struggles around the greens, but I think he has a ton of upside if he can get the irons going there. And then I'll round it out with Brandon Grace down low, someone that I was not expecting to be on, but as I dug in deeper, 7th at the US Open, 4th at the Memorial, 38th at the PGA, has made 6 straight cuts and just playing some pretty good all around golf right now. So going to be mixing him into my GPP mix as well.
All right. Definitely some good names there. Noto, you're usually a Harris English guy. At least you've had some pretty good success with him in the past, playing him when he's on and fading him when he's off. So what do we do with him at, a relatively, probably the most popular player under 7,500?
Yeah, my strategies are conflicting here because I play English a lot, but I don't play the guy coming off the win, and I don't play the cheap chalk. At least I try not to. So I don't know what I'm going to do with English. I think at that ownership, if it holds, I probably won't play a lot of him. If it was the US Open or something stateside, I'd feel a little bit better about him. Some of the guys I do like, Daniel Berger, when I first ran, my ratings and when I first saw the prices, I thought he was going to be the highest owned golfer in the field, and looks like he's only going to be 12%. So if that's the case, I'll have a bunch of him. I like Zuiden quite a bit. He's quietly made 20 straight cuts by my count, which is wild. Doesn't have a ton of high finishes during that stretch, except when, he won back-to-back back in the fall. But he's playing some great golf. It's a shorter course. He's got an elite short game. I don't mind taking, a little bit of Molinari. I know his form's been pretty wild, but if you're playing MMEs, don't mind that. Love the Bobby Mack call. He's been playing great, both, in America and over in Europe. So I'll be on him. I like Fowler, especially if it stays under, 10%, but I do think he's getting more steam than our ownership projections show right now. And then at the bottom range, so I wrote a betting trends article that just picked a bunch of random trends from past Open champions. And Poulter was one of the 4 guys that met all the criteria to win this week. So I bet him outright. I'm going to be playing some of him. I also like, I'll have a little bit of Brian Arman and, Guido Migliotti, 5 straight top 35s worldwide. His numbers, TJ, if you like ball striker, his numbers on the Euro Tour are awesome. So I definitely think he's worth the shot. I like him a little bit more than Gary Higo this week.
I don't mind those guys. I think I might pivot some of my English exposure to some of those guys in that range if the ownership holds. But I do think English will dip a bit with some of that steam going to guys like Fowler. Alex Norn is another guy I don't mind at 7,200. Pretty good links player that rediscovering his form a little bit. Still not in tip-top form. Compared to where maybe he was a couple years ago, but this could be a place where he rediscovers a little bit of that. So that'll be another name I throw in there at 7,200. So did you mention Harman? No, are you in or out on Harman?
Well, he's missed 4 straight cuts here. Played awful last week, but yeah, I'm obviously in.
I'm in too. Don't worry. I'm in on Harman. I'm actually surprisingly not super in on Corey Connors. Usually I love Corey Connors, but it just doesn't feel like the ideal setup for him. So I'm trying to exercise some
he's gonna be hitting it over the green and back over.
Just doesn't seem good. Yeah, I can see just a lot of back and forth happening.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be really interesting if this was like 2 months ago when he was really dominating, relatively speaking. But lately he's leveled off, missed the cut at the U.S. Open, came over and played the Scottish Open last week and shot a 76 in the first round, 65 in the second round. So yeah, it just feels like there's like an 80 coming from Connors, and a little too risky in this type of course for me. So also didn't mention this off the top, but if you built lineups early, or if you're depending on what you're using to build your lineups, there have been a silly amount of withdrawals from this tournament. It was like when we were first putting the projections together on Monday, it was like 17 guys that had salaries on DraftKings that aren't playing. Now DraftKings and FanDuel, obviously they do a good job of noting who's in and who's out. But make sure you're not playing like Zach Johnson, who tested positive for COVID after the John Deere. Matsuyama withdrew a couple weeks ago. He didn't make the trip. Kevin Na didn't make the trip. Sung Jae Im and Siwoo Kim are out to prep for the Olympics. Bubba had a contact with COVID, so he's out. So there's just a lot of guys that aren't playing. Just make sure you don't run into any of those landmines. You wouldn't want a 0. So, or maybe you would want a 0, depending on how hard the course plays. But probably not going to want a 0. So, all right, TJ, anything else you like above 7K before we move into the punts?
I think that covers it off. I'll second on the Harman. I don't think I did that, but I wrote him up in the article. Just fits well as the grinder type course, and I'm always down to support Noto on that one.
All right. You can the birds of a feather lose together. That's I'm just kidding. I don't mind. Harman's in my player pool right now, so I don't mind it. All right, let's go ahead and move into the 6Ks. It does get pretty weak. You probably don't want to go too nuts here. We mentioned Lucas Herbert as our guest, the golfer. And shocking that he's not getting a ton of steam. I think he'll get a little bit, but 18th and 19th in his last 2 PGA Tour starts, then came over to Europe, won at the Irish Open, and finished 4th last week at the Scottish Open. 48 total birdies and 2 eagles in those last 2 events. So if you are into golfers that are in good form, then Herbert makes for a fine punt at 6,800. So Noto, who else you looking at for value?
Yeah, I do like Herbert. I also like the winner, Stuart Sink. I think he's going to play real well this week. Back-to-back top 25s at the Open. He's won the Open before. He gained 9 strokes ball striking his last time out. I just think a lot of things set up well for him this week at 6,900. Kevin Kitzer's been playing really well. I thought he would be more popular than this, so I'm glad that he's not. He's coming off a back-to-back top 10s, pretty good track record at the Open, kind of fits that grinder type that we're looking for. I have a little bit of Richard Bland. Many just know him as the 36-hole leader at the U.S. Open, but prior to that, he won the British Masters, had a third. Then after the U.S. Open, he posted a fourth, and last week he was T15 at the Scottish. So he's playing some great golf right now. Looks like we have him 2% ownership. I like that quite a bit. I'm going to have some Keegan Bradley. He's one of the only, American cheap ball strikers that I like, but his around the green game's improved quite a bit recently. Charlie Hoffman's a guy that plays well at majors, plays well in the wind, so I like him quite a bit. And then the only other guy I have in my player pool right now is Jason Scrivener. I think he's a nice pivot off of Sam Burns. Sam Burns certainly makes sense, rates out as a really good value play in my model, but 10% Sam Burns scares me a little bit, so I'll play Scrivener instead. He's got 3 top 10s in his last 5 European Tour starts.
All right, TJ, who are you looking at?
Yeah, starting at the top, I'll echo the Stuart Sink play. Just think that he sets up nicely here, has the all-around game, and has been playing some good golf despite the older age, working down. And I'll also start by saying that I don't think it's necessary to go super overweight on the 6K range, just given how soft the pricing is up top. I don't think that you gain a ton by dipping down to some of these guys, so I'm keeping it relatively tight. Streelman is someone that interests me. Missed the last 2 cuts. The John Deere lost, I think, 4 strokes putting, so kind of throwing that out. But prior to that, had a string of top 25 or better finishes, and again, fits that all-around mold type of game. So I like Streelman a bit. Keegan Bradley, I'll echo that one. Just a ball striker that I noticed the same thing as Noto, that he's been improving around the green game. Putting is still terrible, but that is what it is. Man, my guy Cameron Tringali, not as hype on him as I typically am, but yeah, I'd be remiss if I didn't at least include a little bit of him in the player pool. Just someone that I've been on consistently for the past couple of months. And then working down deeper, I would probably just look at Taylor Gooch a bit. And then, the Burns play, I think is super cheap for Burns, down at 6,300. But yeah, going to come with some ownership, but think that it's definitely a bit of a misprice all the way down there.
Yeah, it is. His game for this type of course does worry me a bit.
Yeah.
And he obviously doesn't have the links experience. I'm out on Burns. I just think this is a spot where you fade the cheap chalk. He's going to probably come in over 10%. In GPPs, I'm not interested really. If it beats me, it beats me. But I'll look to some of those other guys. You're really just looking for a made cut and somebody that doesn't implode down here. I could see Burns shooting an 80. I mean, all these guys could shoot an 80, but you got guys that could be like 1, 2, 3% owned, guys like Streelman, who was really popular last week, or Ryan Fox, if you want somebody that's got a little bit more experience on the European tour. Those are some guys that, you could consider. Noto mentioned Scrivener, who's going to be about 1% owned. So those are all guys that I think, at least in GPP builds, are better leverage plays than Burns. So Burns will be my bold stance against the cheap chalk this week. Otherwise, I like the guys that you guys mentioned there. We're all in agreement on Herbert. We're all in agreement on Sink. So I think those are the first 2 guys you want to look at below 7K. Saw a couple people in the YouTube chat ask about Lee Westwood and any love for Matt Wallace. So asking about some of the Euro Tour guys, and then Will Zalatoris as well. So you got any hot takes, Noto, on any of those 3 guys? Zalatoris, Matt Wallace, Lee Westwood.
I usually always play Westwood in majors, especially in this one, but I was just looking at his numbers on PGA Tour. They're not great. On the European Tour, they're not great. Usually he's a great ball striker. It just hasn't been the case ever since he left Florida, where he had those back-to-back second place finishes. So, and I think he was like right near the lead at the Scottish last week, ended up T35. So I think I'm off of him, but he certainly makes some sense. Zalatoris, it pains me, but I am going to be off of him. Just the short game kind of worries me a little bit. And then who was the last guy? Matt Wallace?
Yeah.
I think Matt Wallace makes sense. He's making a lot of cuts right now, just hasn't had those high-end finishes. But earlier in the year, we saw him do some really good things. So I don't mind him at all.
Do you like him or Noren better?
Noren.
All right. Let's see. TJ. Let's see if we got any people asking about Sergio, Dean Burmeister. Let's see. People agreeing with your Grace take a little bit ago. I think we've hit on most of them, but anybody else that maybe you didn't get a chance to bring up throughout the show that you like a little bit?
I didn't talk about Ricky. I know that you guys did. I'm coming around to it, I would say. Although it seems like everyone's coming around to it, which worries me a little bit. But Ricky's not someone that I mentioned. I feel like I touched on most of my guys here. I'm trying to look through, but
you got a Fleetwood take?
It's so tough. It's so tempting. I mean, I love Tommy Fleetwood. I'm a big Tommy Fleetwood fan. It's so tempting to play him overseas, obviously in particular. But I think
I'm on the Noto plan.
You're on?
I'm on the Noto plan. Play him in Europe. Why not?
He does just do so much better. So it's like I haven't even literally been considering him at all on this side of the pond. But this is the first time that he's at least piqued my interest a bit. So maybe you guys will convince me come lineup lock to mix some Fleetwood in there.
Right. I think we've touched on most of the questions. So really interesting. It'll be interesting to see where somebody like Burns comes out. Like in these types of tournaments, everybody, you like to try to fit the stars in, and the stars and scrubs builds come together pretty easily. But with the salaries being a little softer, you can kind of go for the 7K guys and round it out with a couple of those. So will be interesting to see where the ownership goes. Part of what makes the puzzle so interesting is, trying to figure out where these guys are going to land. Our projections, team and our ownership guy, Trey, does a great job, updating that throughout the week and keeping the pulse on various sources and social media to kind of gauge that, and does very well. So, that'll pretty much wrap us up here for this week. Looking ahead at the schedule next week, we've got the 3M Open. So back to another easy event with a lot of birdies next week in Minnesota. And then the Olympics contested there in the Tokyo Olympics in Japan will be rolling into the 1st of August. So that's what's coming up the next couple of weeks. Big crowd tonight. Appreciate y'all checking us out. And those of you who might be watching us later as you build your lineups, we appreciate it as always. And again, remember to hit that thumbs up button before you go. Somebody asking about Ryan Fox as we go. I mentioned him just briefly in passing. I don't mind him as a punt in GPPs, particularly a pivot away if you're looking to not play Burns or something like that. He's risky. He's got some downside, some miscut potential, but a little more upside than some others in that range. So that'll wrap us up. Thanks to TJ for hopping on short notice this week, and Noto, and as always, our producer Devin. For all those guys, I'm Justin. Best of luck, everybody, with the Open Championship. Hopefully your sleep schedule doesn't get messed up too much, but should be some fun golf there and good TV coverage as well for the 4 days. So good luck, sweat your lineups, and we will see you back here next week, everybody. Take care.